You've probably seen one hundreds of times. A small box sitting beside a driveway, usually mounted on a wooden post with a curved top and a little red flag sticking out from the side. It looks so ordinary that most of us never stop to ask a simple question. Why does a mailbox look like that? Why the rounded roof? Why is the door on the front? Why does it have that little flag? And why does this particular shape seem to have survived for generations, even as the way we send and receive mail has completely changed? Today, we're opening up one of the most familiar objects in front of American homes, right here, on History of Simple Things. The classic American mailbox has a shape that is immediately recognizable: a long rectangular body with a rounded top. At first glance, that curved roof might seem like a decorative choice, but it actually makes a lot of practical sense. A mailbox needs to protect its contents from rain, snow, dirt, and sunlight while still being inexpensive and relatively easy to manufacture. A curved top accomplishes several of these things at once. Rainwater naturally runs off the rounded surface instead of collecting on a flat roof. Snow is also less likely to remain piled up on a curved surface. And because the mailbox is essentially a long, tunnel-shaped container, it provides plenty of room for envelopes, magazines, newspapers, and other mail without requiring a complicated structure. There's also an important manufacturing advantage. A curved sheet of metal can be formed into a strong shell without requiring a huge amount of material. The shape gives the mailbox rigidity while keeping it relatively lightweight. In other words, that familiar curve isn't there just because it looks nice. It's doing a job. To understand why the mailbox became so common, we have to look at how mail delivery changed. For much of postal history, people generally had to go to the post office to collect their mail. If you wanted a letter, you went to the place where the mail was being distributed. But as communities expanded and transportation improved, delivering mail directly to people's homes became increasingly practical. That created a new problem. If a postal worker was going to deliver letters without requiring someone to open the door every time, there needed to be a standardized place to leave them. And that's where the mailbox became incredibly useful. Instead of the mail carrier having to walk up to every house, knock on every door, and wait for someone to answer, the mailbox created a simple handoff point between the postal system and the household. The design also allowed the mail carrier to perform the delivery quickly. Open the door, insert the mail, close the door, move on. Multiply that by hundreds of houses, and a small design choice becomes a major efficiency improvement. There's another detail we rarely question. Why is a mailbox shaped like a horizontal tube instead of simply being a small rectangular box? Part of the answer is what people actually need to put inside it. Letters are naturally long and flat. Newspapers are larger. Magazines and catalogs can be bulky. A long horizontal container accommodates these different sizes without requiring a deep box. There's also an accessibility advantage. A carrier approaching from the road can reach into the front of the mailbox, place the mail inside, and close it without needing to manipulate a complicated mechanism. The mailbox essentially turns the side of a road into a miniature mail delivery station. And because the opening faces the road, the carrier doesn't even need to leave the vehicle in many rural and suburban setups. That was a huge deal. Now we get to perhaps the most recognizable feature of all, the little red flag. Its purpose is beautifully simple. The flag tells the mail carrier, "I have something here that needs to be picked up." Before this system, someone who wanted to send a letter might have to take it to a mailbox or post office. The mailbox flag created a way for the carrier to know that outgoing mail was waiting. Raise the flag, leave your letter inside, and the carrier could see the signal while passing by. The bright color wasn't chosen because mailboxes needed decoration. It needed to be noticeable from a distance. And that is a recurring theme in everyday design. The best solutions are often the ones that communicate information instantly. You don't need instructions. You see the flag. You understand what it means. You might wonder why mailboxes aren't designed like sealed containers. After all, wouldn't that protect the mail better? The problem is that a mailbox needs to be opened constantly. If you make the structure completely airtight and complicated, you also make it slower and more expensive to use. The traditional mailbox instead relies on a simple overlapping door and curved shell to provide reasonable protection from the elements. It's not designed to survive a hurricane or a flood. It's designed to keep ordinary rain, snow, and dirt away from your mail while allowing a human being to access it in seconds. That's an important distinction. Good everyday engineering isn't necessarily about making something indestructible. It's about making something good enough for its job, inexpensive enough to own, and simple enough to use. This might be the most interesting part. Technology has changed dramatically since the mailbox became a familiar part of American life. We now have email, smartphones, online shopping, digital bills, electronic signatures, and instant messaging. And yet the mailbox is still sitting outside millions of homes. Why? Because physical mail still has a very specific job. Documents, packages, cards, magazines, government notices, checks, and other physical items still need somewhere to go. And once a design becomes standardized and widely adopted, changing it becomes surprisingly difficult. Millions of homes have mailbox posts. Millions of mail carriers are accustomed to the same basic arrangement. Manufacturers already know how to produce the familiar shape. People know how to use it. And postal infrastructure is built around predictable designs. There's very little reason to reinvent something that already works. The next time you drive past a row of mailboxes, take a closer look. That little curved box isn't shaped that way because someone simply thought it looked good. Its rounded roof helps shed water and snow. Its long body accommodates different types of mail. Its road-facing door makes delivery quick and convenient. And its little red flag provides a simple visual signal for outgoing mail. It's a perfect example of something we see everywhere but rarely examine, because sometimes the most interesting engineering isn't hidden inside a spaceship or a skyscraper. Sometimes it's sitting quietly beside someone's driveway, a simple box shaped by decades of practical problems and simple solutions. And once you know why it looks the way it does, you'll probably never look at a mailbox quite the same way again. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.